بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. All praise is due to Allah. We laud Him and beseech His help, and in Him we seek forgiveness, and we seek the refuge of Allah from the mischievousness of our souls and the wrongdoings of all our actions. Whoever Allah guides, no one can lead him astray. And whoever Allah leaves to be left astray, no one can guide him. And I bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship as a deity except Allah. He is alone, He has no partners. And I bear witness that Muhammad is His slave and His messenger. Surely the best speech is the book of Allah, and the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad, and the worst of all affairs are newly invented matters, and every newly invented matter is an accursed innovation. Every accursed innovation is a going astray, and every astray will lead that individual, that practitioner of that innovation directly to the hellfire. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. After thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending salutations on His Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I then thank you, brothers and sisters of Masjid al-Haq, for allowing me to come and talk about these issues today. The first, as Brother Abdullah mentioned in this particular series, is a very, in my humble estimation, timely issue, which is problems facing women, inclusive, as he mentioned, and women's rights. And, of course, I am not a new individual regarding this type of talk. You've had these talks on this subject probably countless of times in front of you. So, in actuality, I'm just following up on the people who you have in this area and abroad who have come to deliver the same message. But this particular issue of women's rights and, as important, problems facing women is so important. It's so important that I am in a state of bewilderment to not see more sisters sitting here. In the speaker's humble opinion, Brother Dawood Adib, the one who's standing in front of you, who has said on many occasions before this, and I will continue inshallah to say it again, that I am not an alim, I'm not a scholar on any level. But in my humble opinion, on my way here from New Jersey, which is my habit not to prepare a speech until maybe an hour before I get there, but trying to figure out, imploring and invoking Allah for guidance, what actually are the problems facing women. And probably we could write a book called Problems Facing Women, and it will be contained with many, many pages. But in my humble estimation and opinion, I believe that the problems facing women in Islam come from two main sources, and only two. And I want to begin the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam began. And as the scholars of Islam explain to us from the principles of usul, I want to begin in order of priority. In my humble estimation, once again, in opinion, I believe that the problems facing women in Islam are two, and I'm going to begin with the one that I think has most priority. Those two things, in the speaker's opinion, are jahl, on the point of the woman, which is ignorance, and number two, the husband. Those two things are the problems facing the women in Islam. Number one, ignorance of the woman, i.e., ignorance of her deed. And number two, the husband that she's married to. In my humble estimation, these are the two biggest problems, and all other problems stem from these two. And maybe in questions and answers, maybe some brothers can refute this, because I don't have to be correct. The first problem, which is ignorance, in general has plagued the Muslim Ummah. It has plagued the Muslim Ummah from the beginning of this Ummah in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Though ignorance wasn't in an abundance as it is today in the Ummah of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, because for the most part, even the most unknowledgeable companion is more knowledgeable than the most knowledgeable of us. Quote unquote, the most ignorant of companions of the Messenger of Allah undoubtedly is more knowledgeable than the scholars, the top scholars living today. I personally have no doubt in this. But in our time, still in the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, ignorance has taken an all-time high. An all-time high. And the proof, as I have mentioned in other speeches and lectures before, one of the proofs of this is that the Muslims don't know four things. We don't know them, we don't understand them, we can't even differentiate between them, nor do we implement them in our lives. And that is, the average Muslim today, whether they live in Burma, whether they live in Sydney, Australia, whether they live in Canada, whether they live in Senegal, whether they live in Arabia, the average Muslim does not understand four things, nor do they have knowledge of it or practice it. That is, the real difference between tawheed and shirk. Tawheed and shirk. Wallahi al-Azim, I swear by Allah the Great, in my humble estimation, the average Muslim does not know the difference between tawheed and shirk. Number two, al-Islam and kufr. Al-Islam and kufr. And a clear indication of this, we're talking about the rights of women and the problems of women in specific. But in general, I believe that these things need to be mentioned as a preface. The Muslims do not know the difference between Islam and kufr. And one clear indication of this are individuals among the Ummah of Muhammad saying that Jews and Christians are going to be in heaven. Jews and Christians are going to be in paradise. This is a clear indication that we don't know the difference between Islam and kufr, tawheed and shirk. The third is the difference between as-Sunnah and al-Bid'ah. We don't know the difference between Sunnah and Bid'ah. And when you look at the ibadat of the average Muslim in the world, 1/4 of the total population, you see we, the Muslims, practicing all types of things that are foreign to Islam, that the Messenger of Allah nor his Sahaba ever performed. Things that never ever were performed. And we do them with happiness and glee. And the final one of the fourth, in the speaker's humble estimation, is the difference between al-wala and al-bara. Al-wala and al-bara. Loyalty to the Muslims and disavowment and disloyalty to the kuffar. And the reason why we don't know this is because we don't know the first two, the difference between tawheed and shirk and Islam and kufr. So how are we going to know how to be loyal to the Muslims and disavow the kuffar? And a clear-cut indication of that is the allowance of the so-called multinational forces into Saudi Arabia to fight and kill Muslims. Clear indication that we don't know about loyalty to the Muslims and disloyalty and disavowment to the kuffar. So now when we synopsize this issue, these four things, we home it in to the problems facing women. We find, once again in general, men and women don't know this or are unfamiliar with these things. We find that the woman knows even less, which is directly related to her husband, which is the second problem of the Muslim women in Islam. I repeat, either she herself is ignorant of her deen. What are the ahkam of salah? What are the ahkam of hayd, of menses? What are the shurut, the conditions, the arkan and the principles of her ibadah pertaining to having a child or suckling her child? What are her duties and responsibilities toward her husband? And what is the difference between a right and an obligation in the first place, which is usually confused. In addition to this, it is the oppressive husband who wants to keep her ignorant so he can continue to oppress her. And this is why when Hassan radiallahu ta'ala anhu wa radahu, the grandson of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one of the leaders, one of the two leaders of the youth in Jannah, of which inshallah we can elaborate on when we talk about teenagers in Islam, when the Prophet ﷺ was visited by an angel who brought him revelation, while Jibreel was sitting next to the Prophet of Allah, which is an additional proof that Jibreel wasn't the only angel to bring revelation. While sitting with the Messenger of Allah, Jibreel, an angel descended. The Prophet raised his head and heard the sound of a door opening, and he said that a door is opening now that has never been opened before, a door of heaven. And an angel is descending that has never descended before this day. And he brought the glad tidings, saying to the Messenger of Allah, Abshir, Ya Rasulullah, glad tidings. I bring you glad tidings. Of what? Of many things that are mentioned in the hadith, but the highlighted part is that Hassan and Hussein are the leaders of the Shabab in Jannah, the leaders of the youth in Jannah. Hassan radiallahu anhu was visited by a man who said, I have a daughter. Who do you think I should marry her to? Hassan didn't say, marry her to the one who is of African descent. Hassan radiallahu anhu didn't say, marry her to the one who is rich. Hassan radiallahu anhu didn't say, marry her to the one who is very affluent and prolific in the political arena. He didn't say, marry her to the one who is super fine, like Denzel Washington. He said, marry her to the one who has a taqwa, the one who has taqwa, extreme fear and consciousness of Allah, the one who wants to stay away from the things that are prohibited. He said, for if he has taqwa,